I think I know what the formula is for our channel, and every person's channel is going to be different. When I am doing something that is contrarian or highly polarizing, you could be for it, you could be against it, doesn't matter. When I'm doing something that feels like it's real, some emotion, like this is reality TV, I'm arguing with a potential client and we're going through stuff that you're going to be on one side or the other, and it stirs up all kinds of emotions. And then there's a piece of value that's baked into that. That seems to be the winning formula for any video that pops for us.
That's a formula though that I do think applies to almost any niche and any platform. The polarizing one is a big one. If it could be triggering, and again, the goal would be, I think, to do that ethically, is you're not like sitting down to just make something up. You're digging deep into self-awareness of what is your true values, principles, convictions, and then not being afraid to share those. Also, something that hurts, I think, social media virality is hedging. And one of the things that helps it is by stating something in an absolute. I think what we have to remember is that even truth is held in tension, that there could be two sides. This is a mistake for me because when I do think about every audience, I like to hedge. That's not what triggers and goes viral. What goes viral is by making a statement. What we're afraid of is people then go, yeah, but what about the other side? And you could say, well, this was a 16-second short. So it's not that I'm saying there's not another side. And this is a power principle for anybody who made it this long in the podcast. This is where I remember going to Traffic and Conversion Summit opening session. Ryan Dice actually spoke about 5 elements of creating movements and 5 elements of you essentially should create a movement, even a cult. And that's a strong word. But if you look at Jim Collins, Built to Last, good organizations, good teams have cult-like elements. All that to say was one of those things was he said that the greatest movement leaders speak in absolutes. And he mentioned characters like Grant Cardone and Gary Vee. You oftentimes hear Gary Vee say, I remember back in 2011, I went to a live talk and he said, my friends, if you are not using search.twitter.com daily, you will not be in business 5 years from now. Okay. There could be no further false statement from the truth. Like first of all, probably everybody in that room was probably still in business 5 years from now. None of them went home and used search.twitter.com. Everybody could probably get away from never using Twitter search strategically or whatever. But his conviction and the point he's trying to make now, me also too, as a background in PR communications, I was a director of communication at a church. I always want to tell every side. Like if you're not using search, unless you're this, or maybe it's not true for every industry, it's not true. So all that to just go a little bit deeper on that polarizing thing. I think that if you're listening to this, sometimes you just might be afraid to put something out there, or if you are like me and you're like, yeah, but what about this or what? And by the way, add on top of that council culture, add on top of that, you're putting something on the internet, but how could you possibly speak to every different background, economic background, cultural background? And you're like, well, in certain contexts, this could be offensive. You got to be willing to push back. All the greats are willing to push past that. And if we're defining greatness by reach, they're not afraid of being misunderstood. They're not afraid of triggering people. They're not afraid. And this is not, I think the myth is a lot of us like to be liked and we like to be, perceived as kind. We don't want to offend anybody. And listen, all of these things can coexist at the same time. Like that could all be true about you. But if you want the growth and the reach, you got to put it out there and be okay with somebody saying, yeah, but what about the alternative? You're like, well, there's an entire video podcast. Like this was just the short of it. Like I break down the other side or there's more to it, or for you to assume or color in, you leave a little mystery. Like you're leaving it. Yeah, but what if? You got to be okay with the 10 what ifs and make the statement. And that was one of the attributes was that these movement leaders, and you could argue in social media, these viral videos, because it's really getting a lot of reach, is it's polarizing. You're stating something, you're making a conviction. There's emotional tension there, arguably triggering, But Chris, knowing you, you're doing this from a place of integrity, your experience, love for the audience. And I'm sure we could look in the comments and see a lot of people that are upset and offended potentially. As you talk about how much you should pay, a lot of people, I can never charge that month. Why would you tell people, this, all that kind of stuff. And those are your most viewed videos. You're listening to this right now. There is untold growth for your business, your personal brand, your reach on the other side of you giving up the fear of other people's opinions, the need to be liked, the need to please everyone, and the need to avoid offending anyone. You never could anyways, but you got to crank up that tolerance for that. And there's a lot of growth on the other side when you start putting out powerful messaging that you believe in on YouTube and social media.
Sean, before we get out of here, I just want to say a couple of things in reaction to what you just said. The criticism of people the criticism about social media that people lobby against me and just social media in general is that we're not having these nuanced, thorough analysis conversations. And there's a time and place for that. But what we have to do is we have to stop someone to get them pay attention long enough so they can learn something they can take action on and improve their lives that day. And I find that when I try to phrase something that's so nuanced, it just loses all the bite and the punch. It's like it's been watered down. And so I need to say it in a way that someone who needs to hear this today in this moment can hear it. So I said recently, theory is lonely. It loves action. Don't keep them apart. That is not a nuanced statement. I'm clearly have an opinion and a point of view to this. And that's the post that people are like, oh, let's reshare this. And that's what happens. So, but if you were to sit there and give a dissertation on that, people would yawn. They're going to move on to the next thing. We're now, whether you like it or not, the attention span has been so reduced. If you can't capture them in that hook, that headline, the thumbnail, they're not going to watch the video. In the first minute of the video, if you can't keep them, they're out. And so you have to learn the art of storytelling and this kind of the Jenga effect, which is I kind of know what's going to happen, but I can't turn away. You're going to keep pulling it apart until it looks like it's going to fall apart, and then it's done.
If you enjoyed this podcast and are ready for some deep dive YouTube strategy, just go to thinkmasterclass.com to get access to my 1 hour on-demand YouTube strategy class. You'll be looking over my shoulder as I share my best tips, and you can watch it on demand right now at thinkmasterclass.com.